want to show you how to use your Last Word Shadowcraft pre-built, which is free and upgraded into a very competitive deck. And it's actually not that hard to get from this, which is the pre-built you get, to this, which is a more optimized version. If you go to the shop menu and click buy cards and trade temporary cards, and as you can see here, it tells you can use temporary gems to trade for temporary cards, and you earn these gems by playing matches. So just by playing the game, you earn these gems, and you can use them to trade for one copy of a legendary you can use in a deck. They call them temporary, but they usually actually last quite a long time. They honestly should call them something like bound, because the reality is that they're cards you can run, but you can't sacrifice them for resources like you can with cards you actually have. Now you're going to want to use your temporary gems on another copy of Dark Alice, a copy of Grave Void Knight, and another copy of Istendet's Soul Convict. In terms of neutral legendaries, you should also pick up Twofold Grace as a one-of as well. With a few simple changes and adding those temporary cards, your deck will look a little more something like this, already much more polished. The next thing you should do is work towards getting copies of Twofold Grace and Grave Void Knight. I don't have any qualms about recommending crafting these two because they're extremely recent cards that are gonna last to the next rotation, and they're used in multiple different decks. The one that I do have a bit of pause in recommending new players to craft is Istendet, because while having 3 Istendet in this deck is very strong, as a card from Eightfold Abyss Asphalt, he does rotate out with the next set, and I feel a bit weird telling people to use their resources to make a legendary that they're not gonna be able to use in the rotation format in like 2 months. So stick with the one from the pre-build and the one temp gem for now. Then the final list should look something like this. A deck that can actually top tournaments. Again, if you only have 2 Istendets, maybe run one more Dust Reborn or Slayer of the Dead. Now let me tell you about how the deck is actually played. The idea is that you want 10 Last Words destroyed, because once you do that, when Dark Alice comes into play, she evolves and becomes a 5/5 with Storm that can summon a crystallized version of herself, which can summon herself back. You have tons of cheap Last Words cards to destroy throughout the game. Valkyria Lance destroys itself when you play a neutral. The 2 cheap neutrals, Angel of War and Aldous, are both Last Words. Twofold Grace are both neutrals with Last Words as well, being Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi. Very crucially, From Dust Reborn can be a 1 play point reanimate Last Words. Evil Exhumer is a Last Words that on Fanfare pulls a neutral, and on Evolve pulls a neutral that costs 2 or less from your deck into play, which are these 2, which are Last Words. And Ruler of Necropolis also reanimates neutral followers, which are those Last Words, and also gives them Last Words to draw a card. That can also be played for Accelerate to destroy a follower and summon a Last Words. I'm saying the word Last Words a lot, but that's because it's important. This deck also has a lot of neutral synergy because Dark Alice crystallized version, the countdown is accelerated whenever you play a neutral, so you combo that with all the neutrals Last Words that you have, and you end up meeting the quest very quickly. Once you have Alice in play, you can play Poisoned Apple of Revival on her, which makes it so that when she's destroyed, you get another one, and then you loop Dark Alice resummon with Istendet destroying herself or her crystallized amulet while also clearing the enemy board to go face and then go face again and then go face again and then go face again. And that's how you win the game. You also have Abyssal Kernel crystallized, which you can also destroy with Istendet for a similar additional damage effect. Grave Void Knight, you might be thinking this guy is more of a fusion card. Why is he in this deck? Well, it's because on fusion, you can tutor for your Istendet, your Alice, your Abyssal Kernel. It's a free draw engine. Also in the late game, transmuting this guy into Adjudicator in the mirror can actually be really important. That and Abyssal Kernel is kind of what decides the mirror match. All right, let's get into the game. So first, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It really, really does help out. So I queue up against Shadowcraft in the first match, and I'm thinking it's either a Last Words mirror or I'm fighting Helio, which is the other Shadowcraft deck that's super strong in the meta right now. Usually I would make the assumption that ladder is Last Words and tournament is Helio, but you know, you can never really know. Helio ends up doing a lot better in tournaments because it's incredibly powerful, but it's also very execution heavy, whereas Last Words is something that, while still complicated, you can jam a lot easier on ladder. And it does end up being Last Words, as you can see from their Valkyria Lance into Amaterasu, so it is the mirror at the end of the day. Now I'm kind of sweating because I don't have a play on 3, so thank goodness I top decked that Azalt, which pulls me an Istendet. Now my turn 4 is also looking not that great. Ruler of Necropolis is good on the evolve turn, but I don't have an evolve point on turn 4 because I'm going first. So I'm really living and dying off my top decks here, and I end up getting From Dust Reborn, which I then go ahead and use my Accelerate to get another card because I need the draw because my hand is so bad. And I end up getting double Angel of War. So now I'm thinking next turn I Angel of War and probably play Fount of Angels to get that amulet out of my hand so I can start ticking down that that Last Words draw card effect and not have it clog my hand space, right? And they're doing something very similar here, playing a bunch of Angel of Wars and Fount of Angels. pretty much exactly as I just said. So I'm like, okay, I'll also do that. But what changes my plan is that I top deck a Dark Alice, and I want to get that and just start accelerating that, because that is free last words procs when that amulet gets taken down, and summoning the Alice back, I can bring it back to hand, and it's just like basically free resources throughout the game. Not only that, but it's also just like kind of fun to play Alice, bounce her back, or like, you know, get her killed off so you can play the Crystallize again. That's sort of the appeal of this deck for me. It's like the rhythm that you get into when you're playing it. They buff their Tsukuyomi and end up hitting me in the face, so at this point I'm thinking, why are they playing so aggressive? Do I have to be worried about my health total? I don't really think that's super relevant, honestly, because especially now that I have Abyssal Kernel in hand, I'm gonna be able to heal off of that if I really need to. Go ahead and make it so that Alice procs again on the turn after, and I'm gonna go ahead and fuse a Grey Void Knight and cycle through my deck here. And I will overdraw here, by the way, because the Fount of Angels will draw me a card, and then I'm gonna overdraw, but I have the most important pieces in my hand anyway, which is Dark Alice, Abyssal Kernel, and Istanet, as well as Night Terrors and Poison Apple. And I should be at 10 procs on this turn anyway, so I'm gonna be able to get that Dark Alice out and start smacking face. Unfortunately, so can they, because they also meet the 10 last words condition on turn 6, which is incredibly fast. I do it on turn 7, which is slightly less fast, but that's okay because I'm going first, which kind of offsets that. Emil and Aldous, that's not a huge deal. I actually make a mistake here. I think I should not have used that Night Terrors, because there was a possibility to use that for my lethal. I was a bit hasty there, but at the end of the day, I think I still have lethal anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I probably wouldn't have used the Night Terrors there. I just did it like completely off rip when I should have taken some time to think about it. It doesn't end up mattering because I still have lethal, but yeah, make sure to take your time thinking with this deck, because it seems like it's just spam, guys, but there is some execution you have to keep in mind as well. This next game is against Runecraft, and it's actually Golemboost Runecraft, the deck that I really highlighted on my channel not too long ago. And it's going to be an interesting matchup here, because if I destroy their Golem Lord, they're going to be able to resurrect it with Air, which is always a risk, and then I end up having the weird situation where I could just end up dying to double Air, double Golem Lord hitting me in the face before I get a chance to retaliate, especially if, you know, I use Istanet to clear their board, and then I can't kill with Alice because the Air damage shield is preventing lethal from going through. But regardless, let's just start with our game plan here. Turn 1, Valkyria Lance. Turn 2, Aldous. They go ahead and play Summoning Disaster, and at this point I'm like, I'll just go face, and then I'm probably gonna Night Terrors this anyway, so I'll use the Aldous ping effect to my advantage here to take out that Clay Golem for free. I end up getting another Istanet, so now I have 2 Istanets, Abyssal Kernel, but no Alice in hand, which is always a bit of a stress. They do have the Celestial Command and the Familiars pack, so at this point I'm thinking they're probably just gonna double Golem Lord here, but they didn't. They actually only have 1 Golem Lord in hand with Ultramarine Witch, meaning that they're almost definitely gonna have Golem Lord on the turn 5, but the amount of golems that they're actually summoning is not that much, so I at least can weather the first storm of the first Golem Lord not doing that much damage to me. But yes, they end up playing Outdoors Mage, drawing a card off of Ultramarine Witch, getting rid of my Angel of War. Golem Lord come out. Outdoors Mage again, praying for no second Golem Lord, please. Nope, they didn't have it in the end. I'm like, thank goodness. I end up milling Grey Void Knight, which is a huge deal because I could have used it to cycle for Alice, but no matter. We go next. Go ahead and play double Fount of Angels because I want to get this card out of my hand because it is going to end up clogging it very soon. So just go ahead and get all of them out there. Now, I do kind of regret this play a little bit because now my next turn is a little bit less flexible. And I'm pretty sure I can't even kill the Golem Lord this turn. So, in my haste to get Fount of Angels out of my hand, I might have accidentally screwed myself over in terms of how to deal with this board, especially because my Istanet isn't active yet. But Aldous can hopefully do most of the work for me. And remember, Poison Apple of Rebirth also has Bane, which is another consideration I could have gone for. But I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, just try and get rid of this board as much as possible. Aldous hopefully can ping off something. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure the Aldous does hit the Golem Lord, which is a spot of bother. But that's okay because the Ghost is going to be able to clean up the 3-1. And this is the problem. I was not able to clear the Golem Lord, and I'm thinking, how much damage am I taking here? If I take 7 damage to the face now, I'm at 12. If they play another Golem Lord, it's 5 plus 5 plus 7. If they play another Golem Lord, it would be 7 plus 7 plus 7, which is 21 damage, exact lethal. But they didn't have another Golem Lord in the previous turn. So I'm like really banking that they don't draw Familiar's Pact here. They're looking for it though. Magical Augmentation. Is there a Golem Lord? There is not! And at this point I'm like, whoo! Now keep in mind, even if I did kill their Golem Lord here, of course I wouldn't be taking 7 damage to the face, but they would still be probably able to air me down. So it was definitely a risky turn there. A nail biter one, but we made it through. Now, my problem is I still don't have Alice, but I have to make a move. Because if I don't, I will just die to this Golem Lord. Let's keep in mind. So I go ahead and summon an Abyssal Kernel, and I Poisoned Apple it to try and heal a little bit off it, right? So I want to run it in, and then I use the Ruler of Necropolis to kill it off myself and get some health back. Because this way, I'm not dead to just Golem Lord off rip. I am dead to Golem Lord plus air, but you know, you have to do what you can. It's a close match. It's a close match. I'm basically like surviving by, what's the saying? Surviving by this, flying by the seat of your pants? That can't be right. That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand idioms, okay? But either way, they end up getting an air, and here I have a 50% chance of killing a Golem Lord. Yes! That was risky. But we did win the 50-50, meaning that Golem Lord is now not dealing damage to my face, and they're gonna have to find another air or another Golem Lord in order to start dealing more damage again. I do get my Dark Alice here, which is such a relief, because, you know, without another Kernel, I was kind of out of options of what to do at this point in time. But I know for a fact that I don't have lethal with Alice right now because they have the damage shield from air. So I end up going with Slayer of the Dead first to ping the damage shield off with that ghost. I get another ghost off of Slayer of the Dead as well, bringing them down to 6, but with Dark Alice Istandet, Alice is 5 damage, which means that I do not have lethal, so I don't end up going for it. Instead I go with New Ruler of the Necropolis. Ugh, I'm like tripping over my words because I'm so excited. And I'm waiting for the next turn to get a lethal with Fount of Angels, Istandet, Night Terrors, what have you, seeing what I get off the top. And here I'm just so stressed because that Familiar's Pact means that they summon Golem Lord, but if they summon Golem Lord here, that means that they can't summon air for another Golem Lord because they don't have enough board space. Oh my god. This was an intense one. So they do end up playing Summoning Disaster just for the can't be destroyed guy, which does stop Istandet from clearing it for free. So that means he's hoping that Alice can't go face with this can't be destroyed. But thankfully with Grave Void Knight in hand, I am able to clear because Grave Void Knight has that evolve effect, which is honestly underrated. Being able to take it out while healing me, not that it's relevant because the game's ending this turn, but still, it's a great effect. Because this guy is not immune to damage just by being destroyed, and Fount of Angels seals the deal with that +1 buff. Let's go. That was a close one though.